And there you are, Global Book Network. It is so good to see you. Welcome into the studio. You got Josh Carey here, your Global Book Network. Global Book Network, we're in for a very, very intriguing conversation. Before we hit the on-air button, I got to know our guest a little bit, and there is a lot here. We're going to be joined by our guest, Fred W. Scott, who, among other things, is the author of the book, Open Doors to the Glory and Praise of God. It is available right now on Amazon, also in Kindle form, if that's your thing. So go check that out right after our conversation. Fred, welcome to the program.
Welcome to be. Glad to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Besides the book, which we're really going to dig into, I just want to orient the audience for a minute. The book really talks about how God, in your perspective, opens doors and closes doors, divine intervention, how things just unfold in our lives, right? Do I sort of have that positioning correct?
Yeah, times that you think you're lucky to be in the right place, the right time, and no, it's the God is intervening. And my first several years in veterinary medicine, I didn't know that. And I just thought I was in the right place at the right time, just amazing things happening. And then later, after I became a believer, then I really realized how many times he's opening doors for me and just raising me up to, this is a farm kid that was, what he accomplished in veterinary medicine is just, amazing. He just kept raising me up to heights that I would never been able to accomplish on my own.
Yeah. And
so my book is really a tribute to God and showing what he's doing, not me, not showing what I did, what the Lord did.
And what's interesting is you were telling me that for a good portion of your life earlier on, you were not a believer. So what happened?
That's true. Yeah, I was 37 years old when this all happened, and I call it the Damascus Road experience. It's all going to Damascus, and he was zapped by the Lord and became Paul, and I didn't change name, but I did have quite an experience anyway. So.
Can you tell us about the experience?
The research that we had done on feline infectious diseases, and about in the mid-1960s, the cat was just beginning to be an important animal coming into veterinary clinics. And there hadn't been any research prior to that time on most of the diseases. And suddenly I had information on the most important, the most serious disease in cats at that time, on how to vaccinate and the age to vaccinate and that sort of thing. So that information needed to be passed on to the veterinarians so they could, these new vaccines that were coming out that we evaluated, didn't make the vaccines, but we evaluated them so we could show what the benefits were of them. And so I started traveling, opening the different veterinary meetings. I had no public speaking training or anything, and suddenly here I am speaking to a group of practicing veterinarians talking about feline infectious diseases, and I might have 100 or 200. I might have 1,000 veterinarians that would be there, and so this was quite. I was having to learn on the run, how to provide that information to those veterinarians. Well, anyway, I've been doing this, and I was out a couple of months, probably twice a month on the average, and it might be for one day, might be for several days, and doing these programs. And so anyway, my wife had felt that there was something missing. She just felt there was something missing. So one day she was invited to go to a tea for a bunch of women by a neighbor. And so she went and listened to the stories and the testimonies of these women, and telling them that you had to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. she'd never heard that. And so that was news to her. And so she came back home, and, in a couple of days, 3 days later, she committed her life to the Lord. Well, things changed at home at that point. I mean, Christian radio was on, and pamphlets were appearing here all over the place. Christian books were appearing. I got to tell you, I wanted no part of it. I mean, I was resistant to everything. I wouldn't even talk to her, about anything like that. I thought I was doing okay by myself, and
Yeah.
I didn't need that. So I was totally resistant to it. And one night, the Lord, spoke in some way to me and said, "You better listen to Lois." So I stopped and listened, and she had a pamphlet there from the Campus Crusade for Christ, as it was known then, the 4 spiritual laws. She went through that with me. And I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. And I didn't make any commitment or anything at that point. Suddenly, the Lord provided an image. Can't tell you how he did it, but I was on this road, the road of life, going down this road. There was a fork in the road ahead of me. And he made it explicitly clear. Again, I don't know how he did it, but I didn't question him a bit. If I took the right-hand fork, I would continue on my way, and my marriage would be done. And that got my attention in a hurry. And if I took the left-hand fork, there was a sign there with a signpost and a little sign, Jesus Christ. And so he made it clear that I could accept Jesus Christ and take that left-hand fork, and my marriage would be healed. Boy, it didn't take me long to decide which fork I was going to take. That actually happened over 51 years ago now, I guess.
And you said it was like a vision, right? You
It
saw
was a vision.
this.
Yeah, he gave me that vision that I could see.
And you were in resistance. So it's not like you were looking for it, but you were shown this.
I was shown that.
How do you really, to the layman, just put out there what that was? What happened? What was that?
Well, he made it very clear. That's what his mechanism for this resistant person, he was able to show them. And what has happened now, people are seeing these visions, for example, over in Iran and a lot of the other countries. The Lord is using visions like that to bring them to the Lord. And so it's not unique, but this was unique in my situation.
To you.
He gave me.
Do you think that we're all, in one way or another, right? Can it be argued that through all of us, most days we're being shown certain things, but how open or resistant we are to it?
Yeah. Well, everybody comes to the Lord in a unique way, I think, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was unique, and that's for sure, in a way of it. But that's what the Lord knew, that was what it was going to take to get my attention, and boy, he sure did. So, and from that point on, my life was changed. I had a whole bunch of new friends, and and then in a couple of weeks, my wife said, "I'd like to go to church on Sunday," and I said, "Yeah, that's fine. Where do you want to go?" And I didn't been in a church in 20 years in Ithaca. I didn't know any of the churches in Ithaca. And she said, well, there's a church here called Bethel Grove Bible Church that my friends, my new friends are saying that's where they go. And I've said a lot about it. And she says, I'd like to go there. And I says, okay, let's go. And I walked into that church. And that was, 51 years ago now. And I sat in that sanctuary, and I could feel the Lord there present in that sanctuary. I mean, it was no question about it. And I said, boy, I want to come back here again. So we've been going there for 51 years now. that church. And,
You mentioned Ithaca.
yeah,
That's where you are. You've been in that home, you told me, for over 50 years, in the area of Ithaca for over 60 years. So you have roots there. What's
yeah.
significant for you about family and remaining in Ithaca all these years?
Well, when we moved out, we were in Ithaca on what's called Sapsucker Woods Road near the ornithology laboratory. And our kids that were growing up, three boys, and they were all through the sanctuary and growing up and watching the birds and everything there. And so, but when we moved out here with the three boys, the oldest was sophomore in high school, and then on down. And so we can make with three boys, and now we have 11 grandkids and 30 and 28 great grandkids. So
Wow.
we have this whole bunch of family, but boy, it is they're so blessed to have all those families. And we built, and with the use of my sawmill, we built what we call a great hall, so we could have a lot of people, because we couldn't have Thanksgiving together. We had to rent a restaurant or something. There were so many of us, and so we built, starting in 2019, we started building this great hall at my son's place, which is only half a mile away from him. So
It's beautiful.
so we can, we could easily seat 50 people in there, and we could seat 100 if we had to, and they've got a beautiful swimming pool there, and then so all during the summer we have what we call Sunday fun days.
Oh, wow.
And the kids swim in this beautiful swimming pool that Dwayne made, and then have a picnic of some kind afterwards, barbecue or something different every week. But
Wow.
for about 14 weeks over the summer, that's what we do. We're pretty well wrapping that up now for the fall, but
So the sawmill that you referenced has been a recurring theme in your life. I know you grew up as a young boy on a dairy farm in Western Massachusetts, and there was a sawmill involved even then?
Yes, my dad had a sawmill, quite different than the one that I have now, but he sawed lumber, and he sawed lumber for a camp that we put up in the Adirondacks. I was only about 10 years old when this happened. And so, but I would help him a little bit, when he was sawing logs that we cut off the farm there. And so, yeah.
And then I asked you before we went on air, I said, how do you spend your days today? And you mentioned that you have a sawmill and you do that for a hobby.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, we just bring the logs in. We have quite a few trees around here, because this is a CCC camp, and they planted a lot of Norway spruce and red pine and a lot of other trees around here. So we've cut down a number of them that were impinging on the house and over the years, but we mostly, we'll buy a load of hemlock or whatever species of that we want to work with, and they come in with a load of logs and unload them there. I have a tractor that I can pick up the logs with and move them over to the mill, and of course, people are always wanting to borrow the tractor, So, but that's what it's there for. So
That's
and because so many of them live right close by. I mean, we now have what we got? We got 4 of the grandkids that have families, live within a half a mile of us, and
so beautiful.
There are 3 of them that have 6 kids, and then the other 2 have other one has 3, and then there's two other families that moved down to South Carolina. That's another whole story, but we're just so blessed to have these kids around, and
Your family.
And and they come in, we have to keep Well, they were knocking on the door, and in will come the kids. You know, there might be one, it might be three or four or five. Can we have cake? So yeah,
So
we have
you have
cookies.
3 kids, 11 grandkids, and 20 something great grandkids.
28. Yeah. The
Like,
oldest great grandkid is 24 years old now, and he was born completely blind. So that's been an interesting journey with him.
tell me more.
About Nicholas. No,
Sure. What's been
no,
interesting?
that's and my daughter, my granddaughter. I mean, my oldest granddaughter is in now in just across the line in from Charlotte into South Carolina, and she's had a home health business where she has people that help people in their own home.
Hmm.
Now she's recently bought a 40-acre horse farm, and she's going into a full blown senior care facility there. So on
When
different
you
levels.
Yeah, when you talk about the Lord and specifically the book, right? Open Doors, it's
Mhm.
called. Uh we can wrap our heads around how God opens doors for us, but you also talk about how God closes doors for us in a positive way.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about that.
For example, I've been out of college, veterinary college, and I was in Rutland, Vermont, and I wanted to be a dairy practitioner. That's what I wanted to do. The only veterinarian that I knew was a dairy practitioner that came to my dad's farm and took care of the cattle that were there. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I was up in Rutland, Vermont, and doing cattle work and small animal work, and I got a call from a veterinarian locally in our area that I grew up in. He wanted to give me his large animal practice because he was going all small animal. And he says, I want my large animal practitioners taken care of, patients taken care of, their farms. And he said, you can use my office, you can use my two-way radio, until you get set. And so I thought, man, this is something. I never heard of that happening to anybody. And I thought, boy, this is a call, and well, one thing happened to another. And then I started talking more with my wife, and she said she knew me better than I knew myself. And she said, you grew up on these dairy farms in the Great Depression and World War II, and how everybody was struggling so much. He said, you will not be able to charge the farmers the amount that you should in order to make a living at this. And I thought, wow, that was and she was absolutely right, because I saw my parents struggling, just never had any money, they were struggling to make a living, and during the Depression and World War II. So one thing left to another, and I started looking and visiting other places. And then I was sent down to, it's called Plum Island, which is off the eastern coast of Long Island. And there's a research facility down there for diseases that are not in the U.S. And so they sent me down there to work on foot and mouth disease for a year or two to see if I would like research. And I did. And so in the meantime, I had applied for a graduate program there at Cornell in virology, and I needed to get an NIH postdoctoral fellowship, and so I did. I got that finally, and so I started in this research program working in this Center for Infectious Diseases in the cat, and then one thing led to another. One day, I was in my third year of graduate study and had not even started looking for a job. My mentor came in and said, there's a new tenure track faculty position that's just been approved in the state budget for the veterinary college. So he told me what it was. He said, are you interested? And I said, sure. We shook hands, and he said, okay, you've got it. Go down to the department chair's office and sign a few papers. That's how I got this tenure track faculty position at Cornell, the veterinary college, which I had for 30 plus years and then retired from it. So
Weren't looking for it,
ah,
opened the doors. But now refresh in that story, where was the closed door? Whatever happened with the large animal vet practice?
well, I just turned down the offer.
You did, right? Because of the
I did.
conversation with your wife.
Yeah, we talked it over and I didn't resist that at all because I knew I never thought of this, but she was absolutely right. I mean, I hated even when I was in practice in Rutland, I hated to charge the farmers what they should be charging. I was charging them $4 or $5 for a farm call at that point. You know, so
Why?
you know,
What was going on in your head that you just couldn't bring yourself to charge them what it might have been worth?
I was brought up that way. I mean, I was brought up and saw my parents struggling to make a living. I mean, they had plenty to eat because we grew, big gardens and we had plenty of meat and but they never had any extra money, and so they when I when I decided my junior year in high school I wanted to become a veterinarian. I finally decided I would that was what I'd like to do, would be a large animal practitioner. But so I went home and told my mother, and she said, "Why don't you become a real doctor?"
Imagine that. How does
But anyway,
how does the
I said, no, I want to work on animals, not people. And anyway, they were very supportive of my going to veterinary school.
yeah.
But they said, we have no money. We can't pay any tuition. You'll have to be on your own through all of this. And so turned out to be 11 years of college before I got through with it. The last 3, I had financial support that came in. My wife was working for 5 of those years, and I had no money other than little jobs that I could work at, And so when we graduated, they had an organization called Vet Wives, because all the veterinarians at that point were men, and they had a beautiful. The dean's wife had really met with the wives all the time, and then when we graduated, they had a graduation party, and they gave a diploma to all of those women, and the title of it was "Putting Hubby Through." And boy, they did. So anyway,
How does when we're talking about trying to overcome your own upbringing lens of not knowing that you won't be able to charge the farmers the fair market value of what the service you're offering is because of the way you were brought up.
yes, that was
How
me.
does
That was
yeah,
the way I was brought up. Yeah.
exactly. How do you see the Lord helping you reconcile that? Is that something you then should walk away from? Or is there a process where you should still be able to step into the role and eventually charge the right fee?
Well, it would be a learning process. I mean, I would have eventually learned about it, but there was quite a number of things happened, and I had another mentor at the veterinary college that when I was going through, I used to work for him, and a fabulous large animal veterinarian, and he gave me lots of advice, and more advice in 15 minutes one time when I stopped to see him, so there was another practice nearby that had offered me a job, and he said, well, he says that practice may not be in business in a year. There were 4 veterinarians in there, and he was very close to them. And he knew that they were going to split and go 4 different ways, So I almost got caught in the middle of that, and I didn't have a clue that was going to happen, but he did. And so he's the one that got me the job down at working on foot and mouth disease, because I said I'd like to I think I'd like to do research, but I've never had any experience with it. He says, well, why don't you go down there? They're looking for a veterinarian, and you can do research and see if you like it. Then you can go back to graduate school. If you don't like it, you can go right back into clinical practice. There's no problem. So that was the dividing point there.
So the book Open Doors is, it seems like I'm listening to you and your story and your outlook on everything. It's almost like you have to get out of your own way and just allow life to unfold. Am I reading that right?
Well, yes and no. Things were opening up, and long before I became a believer. And about 50 years after I did my initial feline research, which was key to going out to the veterinarians and providing, so this is what the story is. You can vaccinate these kittens at 12 weeks of age and then repeat it in 4 weeks, and they're going to be immune, probably immune for life, And I was trying to grasp how this actually happened. I mean, it was such a beautiful situation, and I always thought, well, boy, I was fortunate to be at the right place at the right time. And no, it was more than that. And probably 50 years later, I'm trying to grasp this as I'm starting to write the book about all the things that happened. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me clearly one night. He said, I placed you in the epicenter of, this is the plan I had for you. I placed you in the epicenter of feline research so that you could work on this disease, panleukopenia, which is the most devastating disease in the cat at that time, so that you can transmit that information to the veterinarians, the practicing veterinarians, so that this disease can be totally controlled. And within 10 years, this disease was totally controlled. I mean, the Lord had this all planned out. I didn't know about it until afterwards, but he told me. It was 50 years later when I got that clarification.
Are we all getting these clarifications, but just have to be aware to hear them or see them?
Yeah, there was no vision or anything on this. This was kind of a verbal type of presentation. So,
right.
Yeah, if you're listening, and talking with the Lord and keeping in touch with Him,
yeah,
He'll get in touch with you too. And so,
Fred W. Scott, the book is Open Doors to the Glory and Praise of God, Hidden Nation. It's available right now on Amazon. Like I said, it's in paperback form, or you can get it in Kindle version. It is certainly worth a read, no matter where you are on the side of the Lord. Like the first part of Fred's life, he wasn't. And then he most certainly is and was now. Fred, wrap this up for us. What is the overriding message for the listener you can leave us with?
Well, in this case, if you're kind of retired and are a child of God and you look back on your life, you'll see where the Lord opened doors, closed doors, directed, redirected. It's just so, it happens to other people as well. And in this case, he was directing me for whatever reason. He wanted me in veterinary medicine, and he directed me to get into veterinary school and get through the school and into research, and was able to, raise this naive farm kid up to unbelievable heights and within this fabulous veterinary medicine career, So it's just, I'm so blessed in so many ways.
What a story. What a message, Fred. It's a pleasure and honor to know you, to be connected now, to have gotten to know you more, and to introduce you to our listeners. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing and for being you.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
And there you go, GBN. Thank you too for investing your time. I'm sure you got a thing or two out of this conversation. Whatever that is for yourself, go out and take an action. Put something good into the world. Be seen, be visible as you always are. That's when the good stuff really begins to happen. I want to thank you again for tuning in. We're going to bring you another great episode soon enough, before too long. Until we meet again, take care, be well.
Thank you.